The Rime of the Ancient Mariner by Samuel Coleridge is a lyrical ballet about a mysterious seafaring wedding guest who tells a long story of a dangerous journey. It was written between 1797 and 1798. Now it tells us that how a ship having passed the line was driven by storms to the cold country towards the South Pole, and how from thence she made her course to the tropical latitude of the great Pacific Ocean, and of the strange things that befell, and in what manner the ancient mariner came back to his own country. This is the argument behind the Rime of the Ancient Mariner. Now we are going to begin with part 1 of the Rime of the Ancient Mariner. It is an ancient mariner, and he stoppeth one of three. By thy long grey beard and glittering eye, now wherefore stoppest thou me? What do these lines mean? It is an ancient mariner. That means we are introduced to the main protagonist of this poem, of this ballet, and it is the ancient mariner. Who is a mariner? A mariner is a sailor. What does he do? He stoppeth one of three. That means he stops one of the three wedding guests who are going to attend a wedding. How does he stop them? By thy long grey beard and glittering eye. These are the striking features of the mariner. You have to understand that these are the most prominent features of the mariner's appearance. He has a grey beard and he also has glittering eye. Glittering eye doesn't mean that his eyes are shining. It only means that his eyes are hypnotizing in nature. His gaze is such that you will feel stupefied, that you will be transfixed altogether. Okay, so with these prominent features, with these striking features of his personality, he stops one of the three wedding guests who are going to a wedding. And now this is a question from one of the guests who has been stopped by the mariner. He says, with your long grey beard and your glittering eye, why are you trying to stop me? Okay, what is it that you want from me? The bridegroom's doors are opened wide. I next of kin. The guests are met, the feast is set, mayst hear the merry din. What does it mean? The bridegroom's doors are opened wide. That means I am next of kin. He says that I am not a commoner. You have stopped me, but I was going to a wedding and I am related. I am next of kin means I am one of the members of the bridegroom's family, and I can hear the merry din in the background. What is merry din? It's the marriage festivities have begun. So he can already sense that the feast has been set, the guests have come, the gathering has already assembled in the hall in which this marriage is going to happen. So I am one of the close members of the family and I need to be there in the wedding. Why have you stopped me? He holds him with his skinny hand. There was a ship, quoth he. So he's not interested. Mariner is not interested in listening to the wedding guest. He does not feel interested at all to listen to what excuse he has to make. He is only interested in sharing his own story. The story of guilt, the story of repentance, the story of lament. Okay, so he holds him with his skinny hand. He holds him by his hand, and his hand is skinny, which clearly indicates that he is an old person. Okay, his hand is skinny, he looks malnourished. It clearly shows that he is ancient. That means he is old, right? And he holds him with his skinny hand. He tries to stop him from going, and he says there was a ship. Can you see that this particular line is in inverted commas? This is a direct speech, example of direct speech. That means this was a dialogue spoken by the mariner himself. He says that there was a ship. Hold off, unhand me, greybeard loon, eftsoons his hand dropped he. So the moment he holds him with his skinny hand, the moment he holds the wedding guest hand with his with force, what does he say? He says, hold off. That means you just let go of me. Okay, unhand me, you grey-beard loon. Loon is a mad person. So just imagine if you are going somewhere and you're stopped by somebody forcefully and they start narrating a story about their lament, about their repentance, about the guilt that they've had in their life. What will you do in that case? Won't you react in the same manner the wedding guest does over here? You will, right? So he also behaves eccentrically, and he's not able to, the wedding guest is not able to understand why this man is behaving so strangely. Why is he so eccentric in his attitude? Why is he stopping him? And what is it about the story that he wants him to hear, right? So he says that you have to just leave me. You are a mad person. You are a maniac. Eftsoons his hand dropped he. That means at once his hand was dropped by the mariner. He drops his hand. Okay, I'm not going to hold you like this. I'm not going to exert any physical pressure. He holds him with his glittering eye. The wedding guest stood still. There is something very, very stupefying, very astonishing, very transfixing, very, very hypnotizing about the eyes of the person, about the eyes of the mariner. He holds him with his glittering eye means that he does not hold him physically. Now he transfixes him. Okay, he hypnotizes him. He holds him with his eye. That means he has left him transfixed. He has left him hypnotized. Now he does not have any option but to sit here and listen to the story of the mariner. The wedding guest stood still and listens like a 3 years child. The mariner hath his will. You have to understand that the wedding guest is forcefully being made to listen to the story of the mariner. He hath his will means the mariner has had his will. This is what he wanted. What did he want? He wanted the wedding guest to be there. He wanted the wedding guest to stay there and listen to the story of listen to his story of lament. And that is what he has been able to achieve. And you can see that the wedding guest is helplessly sitting here. He is helplessly made to sit and listen to the story like a 3-year-old child. Just like a small baby is made to sit, it's a routine affair with him. We recite stories and we recite poems. We tell them, we mend them the way we want. We just hold them the way we want. This is how he has also been made to sit and listen to his story. The wedding guest sat on a stone. He cannot choose but hear. This clearly shows the helpless attitude of the wedding guest. Even though he wants to be there and attend the wedding, just like the others, even though he has been invited, he is a close kin, he cannot do anything about it. He is absolutely helpless. He is absolutely, he cannot do anything about the whole situation, and that is why he has to sit here and listen to the story that is going to be narrated by the mariner. And thus spake on that ancient mariner, the bright-eyed mariner. So finally, the bright-eyed mariner has had his will, and now he is going to start singing the story of his lament. What is the story all about? This is what we are going to be told in the forthcoming lines. The ship was cheered, the harbour cleared. Merrily did we drop below the kirk, below the hill, below the lighthouse top. Now, what does it mean? That the ship was sailing, the ship has already cheered, it has already left the port, and now merrily did we drop below the kirk. That means the ship has already started sailing towards its destination. It has already bid goodbye to everyone, and now they are going towards their destination. Which all places are they passing by? They are passing by the kirk, that is a church, below the hill, below the lighthouse top. So these are the various places from where the ship is passing. The sun came up upon the left. Out of the sea came he, and he shone bright, and on the right went down into the sea. What do these lines mean? The sun came up on the left. This means that the ship was sailing towards the south direction, and that is why you could see that it's on the left hand side. Out of the sea came he. We have personified sun over here, and that is why we are making use of this pronoun for it. He shone bright, and on the right went down into the sea. It's clear that the ship is sailing towards the south, and that is why the sun is rising on the left, and you can clearly see that it is following a certain pattern wherein it goes from this left and it sets in the right. Higher and higher every day, till over the mast at noon, the wedding guest here beat his breast, for he heard the loud bassoon. These lines are interesting because they are telling you about something very important. Now the sun is higher and higher every day. This means that it is attaining greater heights with each passing day. When it attains greater height, it means that the ship was nearing the equator. Okay, the ship was nearing the equator, and the sun is supposed to be at 90 degrees at the noon, at the equator. Okay, so at noon you will find it straight upon your heads. Now this is how the entire thing is going about, and in the meantime you have to understand that there is something else also going on. It's like a story within a story. One story is being read by us as readers, and one story is being narrated by the mariner. that is being heard by the wedding guest. And there is something else also going alongside, and that is the wedding guest, the story that is going on in the mind of the wedding guest. What is the story? What is going to be happening at the wedding? What is it that he's going to be missing out on? Or his thoughts are muddled at this point of time. Okay, even though he has been transfixed by the mariner, even though he's forcefully sitting there, even though he's helplessly sitting there to listen to the story of the mariner, but his mind, his thoughts are drifted at this point of time, because he's not just listening to the story, but he's also thinking about the proceedings of the wedding. So that is why the wedding guest here beat his breast. It's like a helpless call for somebody to just come into the picture and take him away from there. For he heard the loud bassoon. He can hear the sound. In his subconscious mind, he's still able to understand that he's supposed to be at the wedding. Okay, the loud sound of the musical instrument. Bassoon is a musical instrument. So he's able to hear the sound of the bassoon in the backdrop. And even though he's transfixed by the gaze of the mariner, the thought of him being at the wedding does not stop. The bride hath paced into the hall. Hath means has, paced into the hall. So you can very well imagine that by now the bride would have paced inside the hall. She would have walked inside the hall. Red as a rose is she. That means she is as beautiful, as delicate, as splendid as a rose. Nodding their heads before her goes the merry minstrelsy. That means the musicians who are singing songs, they are moving their heads as they are able to see, as they are singing and leading the bride to the hall. Okay, so you have to imagine how the marriage goes. The wedding guest he beat his breast, yet he cannot choose but hear, and thus spake on that ancient man, the bright-eyed mariner. So the mariner is least bothered about, he's indifferent to what the wedding guest is feeling at present. All he wants him to do is to listen to his story. He's not interested in knowing what the wedding is all about. He is not interested in understanding the plight of the wedding guest or his helpless attitude at this point of time. All he wants to do is to sing out his lament story. And so he continues. And now the storm blast came, and he was tyrannous and strong. He stuck with his overtaking wings and chased us south along. You can see that all of a sudden, now he has gone back to his story. Suddenly the ship is struck by a storm. And what kind of a storm is it? It's a tyrannous storm. Tyrannous means something that causes tyranny, something that is very, very severe, very harsh and cruel, and it's absolutely engulfing in nature. It's very, very fierce. He's stuck with his overtaking wings. We are talking about the strength. We are talking about this, the overpowering nature of the storm here. It is being compared to a huge and a swift bird of prey. A bird which is always roaming at heights, and it is always trying to look for its prey, for its victim. So the storm has been compared to that huge and swift bird of prey that's always on a lookout for its prey. Right? That's pouncing on its prey at all points of time. He's stuck with his overtaking wings. Now, wings is, as I just told you, the storm being compared to a swift bird of prey, and chased us south along. So it continued to chase them. It continued to haunt them throughout their journey. With sloping mast and dripping prow, that means as who pursued with yell and blow, still treads the shadow of his foe, and forward bends his head. The ship drove fast, loud roared the blast, and southward we fled. You can clearly see that it is hovering them. The storm is after their lives like a foe. Okay, it's like your own shadow. It is trying to overpower them. It is trying to take over their lives. It is trying to suppress them. It is trying to do all sorts of tyranny. It's trying to unleash all sorts of atrocities on these people, and it is daunting them and following them like you do with an enemy, right? So because of this, what are people trying to do? They're trying to bend forward, and you can see that the force of the wind is such that the mast, that means the pole that keeps the ship upright, is also dripping forward. Okay, it is also dripping forward. It's also bending forward, and the deck of the ship is also going forward. It's also bending forward by the force of the winds. And now there came both mist and snow, and it grew wondrous cold, and ice and mast high came floating by, as green as emerald. You have to understand what's happening here. You can see that they have finally moved to that part, They've been driven by the storms to the cold country towards the South Pole, as a result of which all they are able to see around is ice. And those icebergs were huge. They were huge, they were monumental, and those icebergs looked like emeralds, okay? They looked like green colored gems. And through the drifts the snowy cliffs did send a dismal sheen, nor shapes of men nor beast we ken, the ice was all between. So now that they have drifted to the south direction, they have already, gone to the direction that they had not planned themselves to be in. They can see snow all around. There is no sign of human being. Okay, it says, nor shapes of men nor beast we can. That means they were not able to see any trace of human beings. All they are able to see is the extent and spread of ice all around. This is what they are able to see, and it feels as if their ship is stuck in between these, floating ice sheets. The ice was here, the ice was there, the ice was all around. So the repetition of the word ice to indicate the emphasis on the situation, emphasis on the atmosphere, or emphasis on the things that they were able to see around. So what was it that they were able to see? Only ice, okay? It cracked and growled and roared and howled like noises in a swound. Look at the use of the terminology. Growled, roared, howled. All these are personified words. All these are words that you will associate with anybody who is angry, anybody who is furious, anybody who is yelling in, you can say, anguish, right? So the ice seems to be cracking, it seems to be growling, it seems to be making painful noises, it seems to be roaring, and everything seems to be so dismal that they have begun to feel that they will never be able to come out of this situation, right? So this is how the situation looks like. At length did cross an albatross. Through the fog it came, as it had been a Christian soul, we hailed it in God's name. At length did cross an albatross. Now, in this situation, when things seem to be so dismal, when things seem to be so awry, when things seem to be so pessimistic in nature, what do we see? We see the arrival of an albatross. Now, who is an albatross, or what is an albatross? It's a very, very large bird, okay, chiefly white and oceanic bird, which has ice-winged and stout body, okay, which has icy wings and stout body. So that kind of a bird which is usually seen in the Pacific and the Southern Oceans. This creature, this bird, comes with its long, narrow wings, and it arrives from nowhere. Okay, so through the fog it came. That means it was the entry or the arrival of the albatross was so unexpected, it was so unbidden, it was so unwanted that they feel as if it has come in the name of God. They feel as if it's a messenger of God. They hailed it in God's name as if it had been a Christian soul. That means they trusted him, they trusted the albatross as if it had been sent by God himself, and it came as a silver lining for them, because they were amidst such heavy fog that they were completely directionless. They did not know what to do about it. They did not know how to go through that particular state in which they had found themselves. They felt caught up, and this albatross came as a ray of hope. He came as a silver lining, okay? So it was hailed in the Christian soul, because you cannot expect it to come. No trace of human sign can be seen around, and suddenly this bird comes into the picture. So it is supposed to be a miraculous entry, right? It ate the food it never had eat, and round it flew. The ice did split with a thunder fit, the helmsman steered us through. What does it mean? That means it is bringing all sorts of favorable conditions, and you can see that it ate the food that was offered to it. You cannot imagine albatross to be eating the food that is eaten by human beings, but it was eating whatever was offered to it. Okay, round and round it flew. The ice did split with a thunder's fit. The helmsman steered us through. So with the arrival of the albatross, with the arrival of this Christian soul, favorable south winds have begun to flow. The ice is splitting. The weather is changing for good, and it seems to be paving their way through this thunderous ice, through this roaring ice. And a good wind Good south wind sprung up behind. The albatross did follow, and every day for food or play came to the mariner's hollow. That means weather condition seems to have changed. The inclement weather condition that they were facing, that they were combating until the albatross arrived, have also now turned for good. They have also changed for good, and they can see that the albatross used to follow the ship wherever the ship was trying to move itself. So it's like he was trying to anchor it from the situation it was caught up in to a more favorable condition, to a more favorable climate. And it would come and perch itself on a particular place, and it would come at the mariner's hollow. Whenever the mariner would call him, it would just come. So it shows a sense of connect, it shows a sense of connection. In mist or cloud or mast or shroud it perched for vespers 9, while all the nights through fog, smoke white, glimmered the white moonshine. You can see that the clouds, clouds seem to have enveloped the entire sky. It's an overcast sky. And despite the sky being overcast, despite the fact that it was so misty, it was so shrouded, it was so foggy, still you were able to see the moonbeams being filtered through the fog. Okay, so you can see it perched for vespers 9. That means it would come at the edge of something, and it would come at a fixed time every time. And while he would come, you could see that the sky would clear up, and through that foggy scenario, the moonbeams would just come shining dimly. Okay, so it's a clear indication that it's a God sent help. God save the ancient mariner from the fiends that plague thee thus. Why lookest thou so? With my crossed bow I shot the albatross. So here the wedding guest suddenly begins to feel empathy for the ancient mariner, because he is, completely drifted by what he is saying. He's feeling emotional. He feels sorry for the mariner for whatever he had been through, and he says, God save the ancient mariner. Wedding guest wishes God to shower mercy on the wedding guest, and prays to God that he should protect him from all fiends. Fiends means enemies, or whatever obstructions are going to come in his way, whatever hindrances he is going to face. He's praying to God that he must be relieved from all those obstructions. He is going to be relieved from all those. He's going to be protected from all the devils that may come his way. And suddenly he sees a change in the expression of the mariner. What he sees is that he is suddenly looking very puzzled, and he is looking repentant. Why? Because then he confesses, the mariner says, with my cross bow I shot the albatross. So all of a sudden we get to see that this person who used to hail this creature in the God's name, the creature who was responsible for so much of goodwill, it had brought so much of favorable conditions for them, it had brought about a complete overhaul in their static life, suddenly is shot dead by the albatross. What could be the reason? Why do you think the albatross could have been shot dead all of a sudden? Was there something hidden? Has it not been shared with us? All these things are going to be told to us as we unfold the second part of this poem. Alright, so we're going to proceed with the second part in the next segment of the video. Till then, keep watching.